Hi and welcome to the Demolic Cookery channel. So this video is just a continuation of our pizza oven build. Just going to be experimenting today with different materials on our existing pizza oven. So the very first pizza oven that I built, looking to do some experimenting with it with regard to destruction tests. If you click in the top right hand corner of the screen now, that video link will take you to that particular video where you can see how I tried to destroy the pizza oven. Just to recap, what actually happened was it was barely affected, or the vermiculite dome structure was barely affected by the heat that we put it through and the constant wetting. However, the outside of the pizza oven was completely destroyed by frost. So really good experiments with regard to that. Learned a lot from that with regard to future builds. The reason for destroying that particular pizza oven was because I've got a new design. I've only got one pizza oven plinth, so get rid of that and put the new oven design in place. But because the vermiculite dome stayed intact, I've decided to just do some experimenting with materials we can use for the outside of a future pizza oven dome build, and just see what we can do regarding that, see how much we can learn, and that will certainly help us with regard to moving this project forward. So what I'm going to do today is just purely experimenting with things like Aircrete. The idea for this particular video is I'm going to see if I can produce a style of Aircrete, so not pure Aircrete, but a style of Aircrete that we can actually pour over the top of the vermiculite dome to see whether we can use that as almost like a casting technique. The trouble with pure Aircrete is it's almost like runny custard, so it's used for pouring into molds and cavities, but I've never seen it used pouring actually on the outside of a structure to produce something like a pizza oven. Don't know if it's going to work, but I want to video the process anyway, because sometimes I learn just as much from failures as I do from successes, and that's hopefully we'll get a success today, but who knows. So this is the first vermiculite concrete oven that I ever built, and I did a destruction test on this particular oven because I wanted to change the design but still use this brick plinth. So the idea was to get rid of the oven altogether, but instead of just demolishing it, I wanted to go through some tests. If you click in the top right hand corner of the screen, that link will take you to the video where I show the destruction tests on this. And what came from that was that the oven held up to the heat, but the render and the brick effect on the top was destroyed by frost, severe frost. I've had a rethink on what we're going to do. So what I am actually going to do now is keep the oven in place, change the design slightly, but try and repair this, because I know one or two people have this type of oven that's been damaged by frost. So I think this will be a good video to actually go through the process of repairing the oven, as long as the vermiculite concrete dome structure is still intact. So the first thing we need to do is to take off all of the brick tiles, because we won't be using those again, and any of the render coat that is loose. If the render coat isn't loose and it's adhered well to the vermiculite dome structure, then leave it in place. So if you just look at this side, started to take off the render. This seems to be fairly intact, so I'm going to leave that. I think there's some loose bits on the top, but this is the vermiculite dome structure I'm talking about, and obviously as long as that is in good overall condition, we're able to repair this pizza oven. So I'll carry on now, take off as much of this render as I possibly can, and we'll come back and I'll show you the next step. Right, so let me show you where I'm up to. So I've got our strip of cardboard, and I've managed to place that all the way around the pizza dome. Now I was hoping these glued in brackets, I was going to be able to weight them down with maybe some bricks or maybe a sandbag or something, but there's just too much tension as I try and bend this form around the oven. So what I've had to do is just drill some holes and just place some nails in there. Once this is all finished, I'll be able to fill those holes in again with some sand and cement. Not ideal, but this is the only way I could see in doing it. So this first piece is just one complete piece of hardboard, and as I've done is I've scored with a Stanley knife on the inside here just so it bends out well, and then we've just crudely joined that piece onto the next one at the back, and again we just spaced these glued in brackets just to hold it in place. With regard to the chimney, so I've taken the top course, there's actually 3 courses of brick on here. I've taken the top course off with the mortar. I'm going to fabricate some form of metal plate to go on there, and then we're going to have a stainless steel flue piece, because some of the research that I've done since building this particular oven is that this stubby kind of chimney isn't tall enough to actually create a good enough draw within the pizza oven itself. So I'm going to extend this by, I think, about another 400mm, giving a total chimney height of about 700mm, or 0.7 of a centimetre of a metre. So again, this is that hardboard frame all the way around, and I've just used some duct tape just to seal it at the edge, because we're obviously going to be pouring some concrete in here. And the idea, again, just to recap, is to replicate that kind of shape. Again, this is just all a test to see whether my theory is correct, in the fact that we need more mass towards the top of the oven to retain that heat. And again, that just shows you around the back. So the next thing to do is I'm going to get some food wrap or cling film and just place that on the inside edge of this, just fold it over so that when we deconstruct the mould, it comes away from the concrete quite well. And then once we've done that, I'm going to be mixing the Aircrete to actually go onto the outside of this pizza oven to repair it. Okay, so I've just jumped ahead a little bit, so let me tell you where I'm up to. So I've mixed the Aircrete, and the mixture I've gone for rapid set cement. This is the cheapest way I can find of actually buying cement which has got a high calcium aluminate content. If this had anything in the title like pizza oven or refractory cement, it would be 3 times the price. So this extra rapid cement is quite high in calcium aluminate, which is great if we're going to use the concrete for high temperatures. Also, I'm adding in some sand as well, and I need a sand with a high silica content again for the heat. And I've found that kiln dried paving sand or children's play sand is quite high in silica, so I've used that as well. And then for the detergent for the foam generator, and again, if you want to see how to make a foam generator, just go onto the Demolat website into the outdoor projects playlist, and there is a video there on how to build one of those. And I've used Fairy Liquid dish soap is also a really good one for generating a nice foam. In the UK, I found that this concentrated Fairy Liquid is good as well, and I've used 10% of that in a water mixture. So we've got our Aircrete. Yeah, so one of the reasons I've used reason why I've used sand is because this is almost like an external render, so I need it to have a little bit of tensile strength, which is why I've added the sand. Normally on Aircrete you wouldn't add sand, So this is our produced aircrete. I'm going to leave this now for about 20 minutes until it's just starting to set, and then we're going to cover the pizza oven with it. If I try and cover the pizza oven now with the aircrete, it's just going to pour down, go underneath our hardwood surround, the hardboard that we've used to do the surround, and it's just going to leak underneath, and it isn't really going to be very good at all. So I just need this to start setting a little bit before we produce it, just so it's got a little bit of firmness to it. If I was pouring this into a mould, we could pour that into the mould straight away. But because we're covering the outside of the pizza oven, I'm just experimenting with this, and I think I'm going to have to leave it to set a little bit before we actually apply it. So the mix I've actually used for this aircrete, and I've taken this 2.5 litre bucket to actually do the measuring out. So I've done 1 part cement, 1 part sand, 1 part water, and then 8 parts of the foam, and I calculated where the foam would actually come up to. I've put a mark within the bucket, and that's where we actually filled the bucket to with the foam, rather than keep having to measure out 8 parts of foam. So 1 part cement, 1 part sand, 8 parts foam. Okay, so the aircrete has started to go off. I'll show my failings on this channel as well as successes, and I did try and pour the aircrete a little bit too early when it was too wet, and it just came straight underneath this hardboard. So if this does work, and it's a build method I want to use in the future, definitely seal with tape around the bottom of the hardboard. So this is the kind of consistency I'm looking for. So it started to get kind of thick. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to start to pour from the top all the way down, and then smooth it over with my hands, wearing gloves because concrete isn't really that good on your skin. So I'll just carry on doing this, and then I'll show you the end result. Right, so let me show you where I'm up to. So I've run out of aircrete, which is actually a good thing because it hasn't worked. So what I've had to do here, let me just show you the actual aircrete. So what happens with the aircrete is, as it fills, it does fill quite nicely into our vertical edge, but it turns to water. So what happens is, underneath this, almost like a render, we've got a very dry material. A lot of the water's collected here, it's run down underneath. It's definite aircrete, or even the version of aircrete that I've used, is definitely not the way forward, because the idea was to pour this over the top for it to almost be like thick glue, and then we'll be able to mold it in place, but that hasn't happened. I am going to experiment a lot more with aircrete or aircrete style mixes. I'm hoping to come up with something, but I've got another idea which I'll hopefully do. So what I'm going to do with this particular pizza oven, I'm going to carry on with a sand and cement kind of random mix to fill all this out, and then we can start to fire the oven up, because I do want to see whether the aircrete that sits underneath this is actually what the insulation properties are, because I know what the insulation properties are of what was previously on here and how hot the outside of the oven gets. So I'll be interested to see what happens with this. So what I've been forced to do is I've mixed a lot more cement and some sand with some of the aircrete that was left, and that's produced this smooth finish. If this was just pure aircrete, it would be like this, just bubbles. So in the next video, rather than I think just see this finished, the next video we'll start to fire this oven up again, and I'll see whether the performance of the oven has improved, and as I said, what the outside temperature of the oven is once we get a full cooking fire in there. So what's my verdict about today? Well, I would have to say that aircrete poured over the top of a structure, complete failure. It's not the way I think I want to go. It has given me some more ideas though. As I said in the video, I'm going to carry on with this particular structure, see if we can just fill the dome out a little bit, and then we'll start to set fires, because I do want to see whether that aircrete that we've put in place actually does any good or not. Please subscribe to the channel, and as usual, if you've enjoyed this particular video, hit the like button. Thank you very much for watching.